And I was like, how are you guys making money out here? Like, what are you doing? Because they were living there full time. And they were like, well, we sell products on Amazon. And I was like, what do you mean you're selling products? Like, who are you? You're just you have a bunch of kids. Like, what do you mean you're selling? Who's buying products that you guys make? And they started explaining to me like Amazon FBA and private labeling products. And you can be the smartest person in the world who plans everything out, and you get punched in the mouth, and then that's it. Like that. And then somebody else who's, not as intelligent and with a worse plan, and they're just going to speed right by you because they're going to hit every wall and run right through it.
Yeah.
If you haven't spent a bunch of money on something that doesn't work, you haven't been in business long enough.
Yep.
And it hurts. It hurts.
It does. That's
there's nothing worse than paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 goes out of the, and you're just like, wow, that I could have bought myself a car.
Yeah, exactly.
or done a great trip, anything.
Welcome back to the Hustle and Grind podcast, the show where we dig into why real entrepreneurs trade comfort for conviction. This isn't about vanity metrics or overnight success. It's about the stories behind building a reputation that actually matters. I'm your host, Andrew, keynote architect, platform builder, and fellow founder in the trenches. Today, I'm sitting down with Ian Schechter, the serial entrepreneur and digital nomad who loves building ideas, exploring new places, and connecting with interesting people. Ian is the living embodiment of trading comfort for conviction. He's not tied to a desk or a single headquarters. His office is the world. His reputation is built on a relentless pursuit, building new ideas, constantly exploring new places, and making deep connections with interesting people across the globe. We're digging into the mindset that fuels that constant movement, the systems he uses to launch and scale businesses from anywhere, and how he maintains that hustle and grind while living on the road. Ian, thank you so much for being on the show today. Always great to have another serial entrepreneur, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much for having me, Andrew. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to sharing the story and possibly being helpful to somebody listening out there.
Cool. So, you say you're a digital nomad and a serial entrepreneur. What sort of verticals have you been in? Like, what industries have you been in as far as the entrepreneurship space are concerned?
Let's see. Mostly health and beauty, a little bit of pet, and right now I'm working on a couple different projects. I'm doing a telehealth project right now, and also working on some lead gen projects also. That's a little bit more on the side, but it's something that's been intriguing me. So I'm working on that, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is the telehealth brand. So mainly health and beauty products.
Interesting. And when you're saying telehealth brand, like we all think telehealth being able to go and see our doctors virtually. Is that what you're talking about, or something different than that?
A little different. So what I've done is I've partnered with a company with two companies, right? I've partnered with the telehealth company the brand is mine, the marketing is mine. Mm-hmm. But when I sell a prescription like a GLP-1, which most people are familiar with Ozempic, or some of the other weight loss drugs, those are all GLP-1s. Mm-hmm. And what you see a lot out there, if you're familiar with Hims or Ro or one of these big companies out there, they're selling a compounded semaglutide or tirzepatide. Now that's just a fancy way of saying the off-branded version of, Ozempic or Mounjaro. So what I can do is I can sell the product. My partners will be the doctors that are prescribing. So the information goes to the doctors. They approve or deny the prescription. And then my other partner is the pharmacy who receives the prescription and then ships out the product.
Okay, interesting. So you never think about the back end of those products. You always see the marketing in front of it, right? And you never think about the fulfillment. And it is something really interesting because, up until because the company's like, I'm in New York State, and the companies aren't based out of New York State, but how do they prescribe and how do they do all of this? It doesn't seem like it should work, right? But it does. I mean, of course, because there's a lot of companies around. How does that, is it, are you state by state or kind of I'm just curious about this.
No, listen, I'll tell you one thing. It was a pain in the ass to get started.
I can imagine.
which was new because being from the health and beauty space, I was in pretty much every vertical within health and beauty is very competitive, and there's no moat to product, right? Like it's really just marketing against marketing. That's the battlefield. When I found out that there was a way for me to enter this space, it intrigued me because there's a bit more of a moat. It's not easy to get into it. It takes time, money, and a little bit of patience. but the telehealth company that I'm partnered with has doctors that are licensed in all 50 states. And then the pharmacy I use is accredited to be shipping to all 50 states. So that was the key, and it was finding those companies to partner with that enabled me to do this.
Yeah. Now, how did you get into that? Like, what's the story behind getting into this company?
Well, the story behind getting into this company, or the story behind getting into like entrepreneurship in general? Because
let's start from the beginning. Okay. That's a good place to start. Let's do that.
That's fair. So, after I graduated from university, I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I always had an idea that I wanted to start my own business. I knew that I was never going to become a professional baseball player because when I was 16, I just wasn't good enough. So I had to put that dream away, and my backup plan was, become a successful entrepreneur one day. And so graduating school, I didn't have an idea for a product or anything revolutionary like that. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll get into consulting or marketing or one of these, I don't know, maybe sexier jobs that you read about when you're young. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get a job anywhere. And I thought very highly of myself. I was like, I graduated from a decently good school with good grades, and I was I thought I was a smart kid. I should be able to get a job somewhere. No responses from anyone. So I was like, well, this sucks. What else do I want to do? So I also knew I wanted to travel, and I didn't do a lot of that. I didn't have the money to do any of that in school, and so I was like, okay. I can't get a job in like one of these areas that I want, and I knew I wanted to travel, and I was lucky enough that my dad has a landscaping business. Now, this wasn't in any sort of, sexy marketing, consulting, well-paying job right out of college. This was working hard manual labor, 12 hours a day, but in the winter, he's like, I don't care if you leave in the winter, as long as you're working your ass off when you're here.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's do it. So, rain or shine, 95-degree weather or 20-degree weather, I was outside 12 hours a day. I got home, too tired to do anything else. And it was great because it humbled me. Because I went from being like, oh, I know everything to, wow, I know nothing. And I'm finally working, like real capital W work, because when you're in school, you're like, yeah, I'm sure some people studied a lot harder than I did, but work is, if you've never done that type of work, there's just a different level to that. Yeah. And I came to understand very quickly. I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to not do this all the time because I was tired all the time. I was like, how do people, I was like, my body is not meant for this. I felt very weak all the time. And I was like, wow, my dad is a much stronger man than I am. And I was like, finally, it really, in terms of a more holistic view, I was like, I had a brand new respect for just the average working individual who did blue collar work, and B, my respect for my father. Just, I always looked up to him, but it was a completely different level. And I mention all this because it sort of feeds into what happened, but I would take a couple months off in the winter when there was, very little work to do, and I would just travel. And I lived at home, not a great social life. I was just work and then take off and travel. And I had a lot of awesome backpacking adventures, and it was truly like an amazing life experience to take off and travel Southeast Asia, South America for months at a time. And then I would come back broke and I would do it again, and I spent 5 years doing that. And I got to a point where I was like, all right, I have to figure out, like, I can't do this forever. That's not really a way to have any, definite future, just blowing all your money for a couple months and then coming back and then saving up and doing that over and over again. And I was feeling this need to, like, okay, I know I wanted to start a business one day, but I need to figure out, like, how can I do that? What's a way that I can make money? Because I didn't really have any particular skills to sell. I was like, okay, well, I know how to do manual labor stuff, and I have a degree in business that is essentially useless because nobody cared, right? And when I was applying for jobs, they're like, congratulations, you have a degree, but that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And while I was in that mode of, like, things were changing and I was like, okay, I need to try to figure out this. I was on a trip. I was in Vietnam and I was in Ho Chi Minh, and I met these guys who were my age, and they were like having a great time. And I was like, how are you guys making money out here? Like, what are you doing? Because they were living there full time. And they were like, well, we sell products on Amazon. And I was like, what do you mean you're selling products? Like, who are you? You're just you have a bunch of kids. Like, what do you mean you're selling? Who's buying products that you guys make? And they started explaining to me, like, Amazon FBA and private labeling products. And at the time I was like, wait, this is a world that exists. Like, people in America are buying products that you are slapping your label on, and this is real. And the more I spent a couple weeks with these guys, just understanding that this was a whole new world to me, this was a whole new world. I didn't even know this world existed. And they were working 4 or 5 hours a day on their laptops, going to the gym in the middle of the day. And to me, it was like, I was like, this is Mecca. This is, the golden city on the hill. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Because to me, that wasn't really work. I was like, you guys spend a couple hours on your computer, like, that's nothing. I'll do that all day. How do I do that? So I was like, I would ask them, like, okay, if I wanted to get started in this, how would I get started? And, a couple of the guys were nice enough to explain their process. And they're like, if you're really interested, you should, like, read X, Y, and Z. And essentially I spent the next 6 months when I got home just devouring any and all information I could on how to launch products and sell them on Amazon. And I mean, this is now 11 years ago. So it wasn't as ubiquitous online of terms of, like, courses and stuff like that. I mean, now, you can find a billion courses on how to sell products online. It was a little bit harder to find the information, but there was still plenty of information. It's not like we're talking about, the .com era or something. I'm not that old. And then about, probably 9 or 10 months after I got home from that trip, I came up with 2 product ideas. I went to a buddy of mine who I knew did online products, and I was like, oh, can I get your opinion on this? And he was like, oh, I think these are good ideas. Let's go into business together. Like, I'll help you launch these. And we did, and we launched those products, and it took another 6 to 8 months to make any money, because it was just, problem after problem that I was figuring out. When you're starting anything new, you're just sort of like a bull in the china shop, for lack of a better metaphor. You're just breaking you're breaking shit,
pass fail often,
spending money, and then eventually you're like, whoa, okay, that made money. Why did that make money? How did that make money? What just happened? And first off, there's no better feeling in the world. I mean, I'm sure that if you're a professional, like, athlete or something, winning whatever that is probably an amazing feeling. But getting your first sale online, or your first, $100 day, $500 day, $1,000, like, you feel like all this work and self-doubt and all the things that you feel going through that entrepreneurial journey. It's like there's a sense of validation that is very, very needed after that journey. And also it's this is not, it's not an easy journey. If you want an easy journey, don't start your own business. That is it. It's honestly, it's a terrible idea. You have to be a little crazy. We're all nutcases.
I really badly quote Steve Jobs all the time, saying we're the ones that are crazy enough to change the world and do something really cool, because we're the ones that are willing to take that risk and deal with the huge amounts of just suck that happen at first. A lot of people think, oh, you've made you get to be able to sit in Bali and work 4 hours a day, and that must be awesome. They don't realize, like, the 3 years of suck that went up to that point, got you there, right? yeah.
And also, like, it's not linear. Like, I've had plenty of times where, even recently, I've had months where I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, I've had plenty of success, and then I'll have 3-4 months where I'm like, I feel like I've learned nothing. Everything's crashing down around me. I've been doing this for almost a decade. Why do I still have these issues?
Yeah.
And that is just the reality of it. It's like, people think like, oh, you become successful and then then the problems go away. It's like, nope. No. Then you just have different problems.
Exactly. And I've got friends who have been starting companies for decades, like true serial entrepreneurs who have been doing it for 30 some odd years. And it's the same process. Same thing. We all have to go through it. It's the cost of entry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I kind of see it. I see it as like a cost of entry. This is what you have to do if you want to start a business. It is not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it and it wouldn't be fun anymore. And we're the ones that go out and we found we're the creative problem solvers. We're the creative thinkers as far as being able to, let's find something different. Let's sell things on Amazon, whatever it happens to be, and whatever we think is going to work. So yeah, it's an interesting process. I mean, it can be fun. You really find out a lot about yourself in the process. Right? Yeah. Yeah. A lot.
Yeah. It's very interesting. People ask me all the time, like, do I need, what skills or what? And I'm like, really, honestly, you really just need to be like the ability to get like to throw yourself into a world where you have no idea what to do and learn on the fly, and also pick yourself up after getting knocked down 10s, 50, 100 times. Like, that is, I am not the smartest person in the world. I've sold tens of millions of dollars of stuff, and I'm decently smart, but I'm not that smart. I'm not amazing at anything I do. I am above average at a bunch of different things, and I've learned enough along the way, but like, that is, it's one of those things that you come to realize as you get older. You're like, you could take pretty good stock of who you are as a person and like where your strengths and weaknesses lie. And you realize, like, it's not about being amazing at anything. You really just have to be willing to do it. Like that, I mean, it's super cliche, but the just do it, Phil Knight, Nike, like, it really is just do it. Like, there is no alternative to that. You can be the smartest person in the world who plans everything out, and you get punched in the mouth, and then that's it. Like that, and then somebody else who's, not as intelligent and with a worse plan, and they're just going to speed right by you because they're going to hit every wall and run right through it.
Yeah.
And that's just the fact.
I think if somebody nailed me down and said, what is the number one skill set that all entrepreneurs must have? 100% resilience is, I think, the biggest thing that has to happen across the board. You have to be resilient. Things happen, things go wrong. I tell this about in my story where I spent $15,000 on a marketing campaign, got not a single lead from it. And you just kind of have to dust yourself up and go, well, I've
been there.
Okay, let's go on. Let's move on to something else. Let's keep going.
If you haven't spent a bunch of money on something that doesn't work, you haven't been in business long enough.
Yep.
And it hurts. It hurts.
It does. That's
just, there's nothing worse than paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 goes out of the and you're just like, wow, that I could have bought myself a car.
Yeah, exactly.
or done a great trip, anything. I could have used that money for something fun, and all it did was go out of my bank account and nothing happened.
And nothing back again. Exactly. It's that sort of strategic decision making where it seemed like it made sense at the time.
Yeah.
There was thought process behind it. The people that I was working with were reputable. It wasn't like I was doing some shady person in the back alley going, you want some more leads? Nothing like that. It happens. It really does. And I see it happen, and it's just one of those, okay, great. Dust yourself off, figure out what happened. Don't do it again and move forward, And
you might do it again.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I've done things where I'm like, you know what? I made that mistake before and I really thought that I was like, this is going to be different. And then I make the mistake again. Or it's just like, it was a better I did put a better, it was like a better try, and it still failed.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Going back to your resilience point, it doesn't matter how good it looked or seemed or the plan, you're probably going to fail no matter what happens. So suck it up, buttercup, and let's go.
Let's just do it. It's like we said earlier on in the podcast where it's like, fail fast, fail often, because that's the way you're going to learn. There's no perfect way to do this. Trying to overanalyze it and get everything perfect, you will never start ever. And speaking from experience on that, I've seen it over and over again. Sometimes you just have to kind of launch that partial thing, hope to God that it works, figure it out on the way and make it happen. But having that resilience to be able to say, well, that sucked. Wow, let's not do that again, but let's move forward to the next part. And it's, I think, something that entrepreneurs have that we can bring to the world is that level of resilience. Like whatever's going to happen, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to go back just slightly, because I always like to stress this point, is that I started this business with $2,500. Mm-hmm. So it did not cost me $50,000, $100,000 to get started. Going back to your point of fail fast, fail often, try to fail cheaply. Because if you know the journey is going to be filled with failure, then don't spend. It's like, okay, you could launch it and it might not be perfect but it might be cheaper to launch it when it's not perfect, and you could validate the idea and then you could double down on the investment. But don't go all in without testing something. That is a dangerous pit to fall into. And a lot of entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs fall into that pit because the one of the most important idioms that I subscribe to is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Mm-hmm. I was a perfectionist before I was an entrepreneur, and I had to unlearn that, and sometimes you get forced to unlearn that by making plenty of mistakes. But it's like drilled into my head. And it's one of the things that I see when other people ask me oh, Ian, how'd you do this? Or what do you think about this? Or I want to do this, or any of the want to get started, phrases that you can throw out. Mm-hmm. And every single time I throw out that don't let perfect be the enemy of good, just launch it. Launch it, ship it, whatever you're doing. Let's test it out, because the idea might sound good. It might fail. And it might not be this idea. It might be the next idea, but you have to not be married to the idea. Mm-hmm. You need to like it and you need to test it, and you need to be married to the process, and you need to be married to, your conviction to, go out and do this crazy thing called entrepreneurship. But the idea isn't what what you should be married to. And that's tough because I get it. Sometimes you have the baby and you've given birth to this baby and you don't want to kill that baby. Like that baby is yours. It came from your brain, and it is very, very difficult to, as I'm a product of watching Shark Tank when, I don't really watch it that much anymore, but Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, take it behind the barn and shoot it.
Yep.
That is incredibly apt. Sometimes it doesn't matter how much you love that idea. You got to take it behind the barn. You got to shoot it. You got to move on to the next thing, because these are the biggest traps that I've seen, talking to other people and what I've seen in my journey is like, you get married to that idea. And listen, I've had ideas where I've probably spent more money than I should have because I was like, oh, I really wanted it to work.
Yep.
That
too. More times than
you have those things where you're like, I've made money in others. Like, I really want this one to work. And 10, 15, 20 grand later, you're like, oh.
That's exactly what this was. I was really married to this one thing, and I wanted to do this one thing, and it just was, the market was not supporting it, and I had to step back and go, that's not the right direction. And so, it's true. It's, this is not your kid. This is your income source. And sometimes you have to move it. Sometimes you have to sell it. Sometimes it has to go in a new direction. Getting really emotionally attached to that one product is really hard. And it makes it difficult to pivot, Yeah. Data over emotions, right? Data over feelings, isn't it?
And that's tough. That's tough as a human being, but you gotta, it's one of those things that we gotta learn, Yep,
absolutely. Yeah. Ian, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. And man, so thank you very much for sharing your experience. It's always nice to hear, to go back through war stories from a fellow entrepreneur. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway,
thanks for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Anytime. You have a great rest of the day. Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hustle and Grind podcast, where we unpack what it really takes to build something that matters. If today's conversation hit home, do me a favor. Share it with someone who's in the trenches too. And if you're building your own brand, platform, or message and want help turning that story into serious authority, head over to theauthorityforge.com to see how we can help. Until next time, keep showing up, keep shipping, and keep chasing the work that sets you on fire. I'm Andrew, and this was the Hustle and Grind podcast.